Hey there, it's Leona. Welcome to Zen Mindfulness Shodo. Today, we're gonna practice Shodo meditation while focusing on the Katakana character for U. So, let's begin our beautiful journey together. When you write a character, imagine a square about the size of the character that you are gonna write like this. First, I'm gonna write it. Then I'm gonna explain the points and tips for writing the character beautifully in detail. Alright, now I'm gonna explain the points and tips for writing this character beautifully. The first stroke starts from a point, a bit higher than the middle of the top half of the middle vertical line. Place the brush on the middle vertical line at about a 30 to 45 degree angle, and lightly push the brush towards the tip of it without moving it on the paper. This stroke moves down while slowly leaving the paper. The tip of the brush leaves the paper at last as you make the bottom part of the stroke. So it gets thinner as it moves down. The length of the stroke is about 1/3 of the top half of the middle vertical line. It moves down until the space above the starting point of the stroke and the space below the end point of the stroke are almost the same size. Of course, this is just a rough guide for practicing writing, so it doesn't have to be precise. The second stroke starts from a point a bit lower than the center point of the top left square, but a little bit higher than the end point of the first stroke. It moves straight down, parallel to the middle vertical line, or it moves down slightly to the left. If you do that, this inside space looks bigger. The character appears neat overall. This stroke moves down while curving to the right. And this might not be a good example, but it looks more beautiful when it gets thicker as it moves down. The length of the second stroke is a bit longer than the first stroke. Lightly push the brush back towards the beginning point of the stroke. Then the jagged parts of the brush stroke won't appear as much, and the end point will look smoother. The third stroke starts from a point a bit lower than the starting point of the second stroke. Attach the beginning point to the second stroke completely before moving the brush to the right, like the beginning point of the first stroke. Lightly push the brush towards the tip of it and stabilize the brush. And the stroke moves to the right while slightly curving up. It touches the end point of the first stroke along the way. It moves upward to the right until the middle vertical line is in the middle of the stroke. It stops there at about a 45 degree angle. Like the starting point of the stroke, lightly push the brush towards the tip of it and stabilize the brush. Then the stroke scoops downward to the left while curving down and getting thinner until the height at which the space above the starting point of the first stroke and the space below the end point of the third stroke are almost the same size. Another guideline for the length of the diagonal part of the stroke is that it should appear about the same length as the horizontal part of the stroke. Again, of course, it doesn't have to be precise. Just aim for that height when scooping downward to the left. One key point when writing the katakana character U is, as I mentioned earlier, the angle of the second stroke. I'm gonna write examples here. As in the upper example, if you write the second stroke like this, a bit leaning to the left, it makes the inside space narrower. In the lower example, the second stroke is parallel to the middle vertical line, or only slightly slanted to the left. Writing it this way makes the inside space wider, and the character U looks more relaxed compared to the upper example where the space is narrower. Therefore, I recommend writing the second stroke completely vertical or with a very slight slant to the right. By doing so, the internal space will appear wider and the character will look more beautiful overall. That said, if the angle of the second stroke is, I'm gonna write an example here. If the angle of the second stroke slants too far to the right, like this, the overall balance of the character will look poor, so please be careful with this angle. As I mentioned earlier, the ratio between the horizontal part and the diagonal part of the third stroke is also an important point. In the app example, the length of the diagonal part appeared short compared to the length of the horizontal part. In the lower example, on the contrary, the length of the diagonal part appears long compared to the length of the horizontal part. When the proportions look like these examples, it doesn't appear very neat. Therefore, I recommend practicing writing so that the lengths of the horizontal and diagonal parts appear about the same. And by practicing writing the characters so that the space above and below appear equal within the square box, you should get a good sense of the appropriate lengths for each stroke. The last point is the position of the ending point for the third stroke. If I write an example here, for instance. For example, if this is the middle vertical line, and the stroke goes all the way to the left side of that middle vertical line, so ending around here, then the diagonal part would give the impression of being too long for the overall character, so aim to end around the middle vertical line. Keep these tips and points in mind when you practice. The key points and tips for writing katakana neatly, as explained in the video, are concisely summarized in this book. Each page allows you to practice one character. If you're interested, please see the description. When you practice with a brush, I recommend that you place a few pieces of paper under the page that you're writing on, so that the ink doesn't bleed onto the page under it. Alright, let's get started. Before you start writing, take a deep breath and clear your mind. Slowly breathe in as much air as you can through your nose and exhale all the negative emotions that you've been holding until this moment through your mouth. When you are mentally ready to write, you can start writing. Check the starting point, turning point, end point, the angle of the stroke, and the direction of the curve. After that, without hesitation, aim for the end point and move the brush smoothly. Try to write slower than you normally write, putting your heart and soul into each stroke. However, if you move the brush too slowly, the ink will bleed, and the lines will become thicker in areas where you don't want them to be thicker. And if you move the brush too quickly, the ink will fade, and the lines will become thinner in areas you don't want them to be thinner, or the ink will disappear midway through, making the strokes shorter than you want them to be. So, concentrate on finding the right speed. Once you've finished writing the character, look at the character as a whole and think about what changes you should make next in order to make it look even more beautiful. Of course, you don't have to take all the tips and points that I've told you and copy my way of writing the character. Trust your own sense of beauty and adjust accordingly. It's important that you're satisfied with the shapes of the characters you write. So, please use my tips and points as ideas and hints for adjusting the shape of the character to your sense of beauty. Of course, You can't change the shape so much that it no longer looks like a character. If you notice that you're thinking about something else while writing, immediately refocus on what you are writing. By repeating this exercise, you'll be able to notice when your attention starts to turn to something unrelated to your current action, and gradually improve your concentration and self-control. You can also build your patience with this practice. So, let's practice together. It's just natural that we are unable to create perfectly satisfying strokes every time. Instead of blaming yourself for not being able to make strokes that you want, try praising yourself for taking on difficult challenges. On this channel, I no longer share tips and points for writing Japanese characters beautifully. With a pen and a brush in both English and Japanese, I also practice Zen Mindfulness Shodo meditation that focuses all of our attention on the present moment. If you want to learn how to write other characters, or if you want to use this channel to learn Japanese language, or if you want to keep practicing Zen Mindfulness Shodo meditation with me, please subscribe to my channel and click the bell mark so you get a notification as soon as I upload a new video. If you liked this video, or if you thought the information was useful, please hit the thumbs up button. Also, if you share my videos with people who might be interested, it'll be a good support not only for me, but also for them. Alright, let's learn and practice together again in my next video. Thank you for watching.